Venerable Khenpo Sodargye, distinguished teachers and leaders, dear students, dear guests and enthusiasts of Buddhism. Greetings to you all. Welcome to today's lecture. First, on behalf of the Alumni Association of Management Philosophy of the Department of Philosophy at Sun Yat-sen University, I extend our warmest welcome to all of you. Thanks for attending the third doctoral research forum organized by the doctoral alumni. Joining the Sun Yat-sen University community reminds me of the Sun Yat-sen University anthem. The white cloud mountain stands tall, the Pearl River flows long. Our school rises proudly, a glory to the nation. Founded by Sun Yat-sen, his legacy endures. We pursue broad learning, careful inquiry, and thoughtful reflection. Let us give the warmest applause to invite Khenpo Sodargye. Applause, please. The Alumni Association of Doctoral Management Philosophy supports lifelong learning and education for doctoral classmates. Since its establishment, we have organized major expert forums irregularly each year. With everyone's strong support and hard work, we have invited Professor Wang Ruipu, the Dean of Central Party School, the Director of the General Secretary Hu's office, to analyze on trends and risks of China's economy and interpreted the 12th five-year plan. We also invited a senior philosophy professor from the university, renowned historian Professor Yuan, to speak on Xinhai Revolution and the 20th century China. This time, we are connected with eminent Tibetan Buddhist master Khenpo Sodargye, who will give a lecture on wisdom and compassion, Buddhist methods to end afflictions. This is a large-scale lecture. Although it's heavily raining, everyone gathered here, which is enough to prove Khenpo's influence and charisma. Khenpo has visited Peking, Tsinghua, Fudan, and Zhejiang University. He just came from the Central Normal University Forum yesterday. He is at Sun Yat-sen University to lecture students about Buddhism. This opens dialogue between Buddhism, science, and culture. Now, let us warmly invite the master to give us his teaching with a round of applause. Please welcome him.
Just now, your Sun Yat-sen University school song was truly very pleasant to listen to. When I came in earlier, I also saw this campus is very beautiful. I think that prestigious universities each have their own unique blessings, as well as their own characteristics. Of course, Sun Yat-sen University was a university founded by Mr. Sun Yat-sen personally. Today, I also feel greatly honored to be here at the Distinguished Doctoral Management Forum with all of you, giving a lecture on the teachings and philosophy of Buddhism, and engaging in meaningful exchange and mutual learning together. When I was in Tibet, I used to read some books, and at that time I came across the school motto of Sun Yat-sen University. It is extensive learning, thorough inquiry, careful thinking, clear discernment, and earnest practice. These are similar to the hearing, contemplation, and practice in Tibetan Buddhism. They correspond absolutely perfectly. I recall that I have mentioned this in a lecture of standards for being a good student and child. For example, extensive learning means that no matter what fields of knowledge you would like to master it, you need to first learn broadly and listen to your teacher's lectures. if you do not take steps to improve and expand your knowledge in a range of areas, it will be hard to fully understand all of the truths. The first step is to be well informed, similar to listening in the listening and practicing the Dharma. In Tibetan Buddhism, one learns from teachers to hear the Dharma. You must depend on a wise master who possesses both virtue and knowledge. Otherwise, if you practice blindly, you will not attain the true meaning. Then, contemplation in the process of hearing the Dharma. As you may know, Tibetan Buddhism emphasizes debate. Through the most rigorous form of logical reasoning, if you have any doubts whatsoever in your mind, you could engage in debate either with your fellow practitioners or in front of your master to resolve doubts and raise questions. This is thinking in the listening, thinking, and practicing the Dharma. Contemplation means engaging in thought. During contemplation, you need to debate, reflect, and apply mind, and there is also discernment. Ultimately, you need to accept what is good and abandon what is not. This is, in essence, called discernment, similar to contemplation in hearing, thinking, and practice. In the end, it is doubly acting, simply means applying the truth you have learned and all doubts you have resolved into actual conduct. If you do not apply what you have learned to your real life, isn't that just empty talk without any real meaning or value? In this way, putting it into practice is essentially equivalent to cultivation. The stages of hearing, contemplating, and meditating in Tibetan Buddhism align with the university's motto. Worldly and transcendental focuses differ. When we seek for a truth, we first need to understand it and then reflect on it. After reflecting, we then put it into practice. Today, what I'd like to share with everyone are the Buddhist theories and methods for eliminating afflictions. The theory part is hearing and contemplation, and we must have a systematic, complete, and sequential theory. As for the spiritual practice, it requires dedication, which actually comes from the doctrine of the mean. Learn extensively, inquire thoroughly, think carefully, discern clearly, and practice earnestly. The practices in the past, I have researched historical annotations, and the practice denotes the actualization of teachings. In this case, I think during the discussion with all of you today, I hope that many people will be able to apply the knowledge they learn, no matter the situation. People start from the age of 5 or 6 to enter primary schools through to universities, spending 20 years to learn. But when it comes to actually using this knowledge in real life, honestly, a lot of what we've learned is absolutely useless, which is truly a pity. So I believe that knowledge must be put to good use. For knowledge to truly be useful, what we learn must always be connected to real life meaning and relevance. We need to think critically about it, consistently apply it, and put it into practice in our daily lives. This is something universally and profoundly important. Mr. Sun Yat-sen, in fact, he had a certain relationship with Buddhism. I wonder if our university students and intellectuals here are aware of this. From a Buddhist perspective, I care about society, and on the other hand, I am also interested in how the historical figures viewed Buddhism. I think Mr. Sun Yat-sen, first of all, had historical connections and interactions with eminent monks and great Buddhist masters. For example, Mr. Sun Yat-sen had connections with Master Taishu. Master Taishu was in Nanjing in 1912, and at that time, Master Taishu founded the Buddhist Advancement Association. Mr. Sun Yat-sen was the provisional president, and he gave his full and enthusiastic support as well as heartfelt praise to the Buddhist reform movement. Also, I once have read The Empty Cloud by Fang Fang, and this book recorded many of deeds about Master Xu Yun. There were also some exchanges and dialogues between Mr. Sun Yat-sen and Master Xu Yun. In this conversation, they exchanged their views. It was mentioned that Mr. Sun Yat-sen was actually very interested in both Christianity and Buddhism, as he found the ideas and traditions of these religions to be quite fascinating. At that time, Master Xu Yun said that in order to truly gain insight into the historical origins and development of Buddhism and Christianity, one should recognize that they share a common origin. Some Christians may not necessarily agree with this, but in fact, if we look at it from a historical perspective, this is certainly something that is, without a doubt, genuinely well worth exploring. At that time, the Venerable Master Xu Yun said that in early Christianity there is a text called The Miracle of Walking on Water. It was actually written by St. Peter, a significant figure in the history of early Christianity. It was recorded in the text that when Christ was in his teens, he traveled to India, where he took time to study and reflect upon the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha and received deep teachings from a disciple of Bodhisattva Asvaghosha. There is such a saying. Later, perhaps due to prejudice towards the sects by a few individuals, this particular book was not allowed to be published. It was banned. At that time, the Venerable Master Xu Yun calmly stated that this script actually exists in the Vatican Library, and it is also preserved in the British Library. Mr. Sun Yat-sen then said, if this book really exists, if the miracle of walking on water mentioned earlier does indeed exist, it would be worth looking for. He said, when I go to the UK in the future, I should look for its version, and if I can find it, then it would help unity and cooperation between Christianity and Buddhism on one hand, and on the other hand, it would also have a great impact and benefit for world peace as a whole. That's what he said at the particular time. Actually, I have explored this particular issue before as well for historical figures like Mr. Sun Yat-sen and Master Xu Yun. If there is no reasonable basis or any solid substantial evidence, it would be nearly impossible to include it in such a historical record. In such case, if some of the current charitable activities of Christianity have some certain connections with Buddhism, I think it should be making sense. I once read an article before about Professor Ji Xianlin from Peking University, who passed away a few years ago, and he wrote an article saying that Maitreya Bodhisattva in Buddhism, who is known as the future Buddha and is expected to appear in the world to bring enlightenment and compassion. In Christianity, they often refer to the Messiah, who is the savior to come in the future. In Buddhism, Maitreya Buddha is the savior of the future. I was actually thinking that Maitreya and Messiah even sound quite similar phonetically. Christianity views Messiah as a symbol of compassion, a Lord of mercy, and he will ultimately save this world. In Buddhism, the meaning of Maitreya is the compassionate one, which represents compassion. So honestly, I think that a professor from Peking University wouldn't say this without any basis, since they are both considered future saviors. If they are actually the same person, then even the current Buddha could be seen as unified, just manifesting in different form. There isn't any major contradiction in this. Moreover, I remember in the past, in a conversation between Master Shu Yong and Chiang Kai-shek, Master Shu Yun said that Pure Land is actually what Christianity refers to as heaven, meaning that both are describing the same kind of spiritual place. This principle has different interpretations throughout various points in history. Long ago, in the past, there was a distinguished German by the name of Holden Kesten, who spent over a decade years conducting in-depth field investigation in countries such as India and Iran. He eventually wrote Jesus in India, which was later made into a feature film. In this work, it is stated that after reaching the age of approximately 10 years old, according to the account, Jesus went to India where he was shaped by teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. This book has already been translated into many languages in the world. Also, I remember there was a Russian historian named Notovich, and he also claimed that Jesus went to India at the age of 14 years old through detailed and careful historical investigation. Originally, Jesus' family prepared for his marriage, but he was unwilling. He went to India, first thoroughly studied Brahmanism and then Buddhism. After 6 years in India, he eventually traveled to Nepal and Himalayas mountains for a variety of reasons. And he was influenced by Buddhism historically. While I have seen that other Christians and some scholars do not accept these views either. One thing is certain. In the past, the four Gospels, Christianity has the four Gospels written by four great disciples. Among these four Gospels, the entire period of Jesus' life from age 12 to 32 is essentially a blank. Why is it a blank? Some people say at that time the Pope did not want there to be any connection with Buddhism, so the events during that period were erased. Clearly, there is such a saying. Of course, today I am not deliberately trying to merge Christianity and Buddhism into one. I have no such intention. It's just that I used to enjoy reading some books, and while reading, I recalled a conversation between Sun Yat-sen and Master Shu Yun, and quoted them. When it comes to religions, in the very end, all good religions should ultimately be about doing good deeds for humanity and all living beings. True Buddhism is also about benefiting sentient beings and doing good deeds. Apart from good deeds, I have never seen any kind of evil act in Buddhism. So there's no need to worry about Buddhism bringing instability or unrest to society. Could that happen? Absolutely not. Some history books also mention in their records that Christ, because he found the very profound teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, if passed directly on to humanity, would be too deep and difficult to accept quickly. He conveyed a spirit of universal love as simple and fit Buddhist teachings, and this spirit of universal love was in many ways much easier for people to accept. For this reason, such a religion was built up. Of course, the Christian Bible, according to some historical accounts, had 40 different authors and was compiled by experts over dynasties. It was not, in fact, entirely created or brought about by Jesus himself. In these respects, I think that intellectuals should give this some careful thought. Why is Christianity so prosperous in Western countries today? From the president to ordinary citizens, over 90% are followers of this religion. And after embracing their faith, it has influenced their conduct and their lives. If there were no religious constraints and everyone only focused on this life, on what is in front of us now, then the moral standards of all humanity would indeed continue to decline. There may not necessarily be any genuine, actual, or real benefits. Therefore, all our religions across the world should strive for harmony and unity. We should seek to improve in the direction of truth, goodness, and beauty. This is something that truly deserves and genuinely requires our careful attention. Otherwise, if everyone only thinks about their own interests and abandons some excellent traditions of the past, as well as the interests of humanity as a whole, if everyone only cares about themselves, then in the end, what kind of situation society will become is something we can all imagine. So sometimes I personally feel that whether it's big cities, the economic development outside now can be said that each year is better than the last. It's really quite impressive. Over a decade ago, a family might have only one car. They might have two now. In the past, people lived in ordinary single-story houses, but now they live in high-rise buildings. However, our inner souls have not truly achieved peace and happiness. Have our moral values improved over time? This is something that really deserves our attention and observation. The development is not just about material progress, as material development, in fact, does not necessarily bring people true happiness. We all know that nowadays there are more and more wealthy people, but how many of them are truly happy? I think everyone is aware of this. At this point, humanity should strive for positive aspects. Whether it's through religion, philosophy, or ideology, everyone should work together, and we need to truly play our respective roles. Otherwise, I think if many people's personal values and beliefs go astray in society today, people will be busy every day. And in the end, what they gain would not be happiness, development, or the genuine truth. So today, some of the things I really want to share with you are truly and definitely worth reflecting on. In fact, giving a single lecture can't cover deep truths. It's just meant to offer you some guidance. Right now, we really need to keep learning and keep striving forward. Striving for what? We should strive to do good deeds, to engage in charity whenever possible. Many of us today have resources, power, and various abilities. But if you lack the mindset of doing charity, if you don't care about the people around you, then perhaps your wealth and influence simply won't truly realize their full value ultimately. I heard that yesterday when Bill Gates gave a lecture at Peking University, some students curiously asked him how we can actually do charity work in our daily lives. At that time, he said, actually, not everyone has to use money to do charity. What matters is having the intention to do good deeds, whether you are a university student or anyone else. As long as you have this intention, you have the ability to do it. So I think many of us should positively play a greater role in this regard. Otherwise, sometimes in today's society, everyone only thinks about themselves. And if that's the case, the final outcome is not at all something to be envied. It just won't be. So today, at this very moment, right here and now, on one hand, I would like to talk to everyone about how to deal with our afflictions when they arise. We have greed, anger, and ignorance. Buddhism teaches that there are, in fact, many kinds of afflictions such as these. When these afflictions arise, they cause pain and we experience suffering. After suffering, no matter what it is, if it is a physical illness, we can simply go to the hospital for treatment. In general, many illnesses can be treated with the technologies in hospitals. However, when we experience suffering in our minds, it would be better if we have our own spiritual remedy. As for these spiritual remedies, personally, after spending many years studying on the teachings and philosophy of Buddhism, I feel from the depths of my heart that Buddhism contains many methods for healing mental afflictions. These methods are things that people simply must know about. It is essential to understand them. There are countless people in the world who are suffering beyond words, exhausted both physically and mentally. These people must use the sweet, nectar-like remedies of the Dharma, not only to benefit themselves, but also to share them with those who are connected to them. In this way, our lives will definitely and steadily see measurable improvements in many aspects. For example, Buddhism teaches us how to counteract our afflictions, especially in our daily lives. In fact, according to the Hinayana tradition, there are specific methods for dealing with these issues. For instance, in countries like Thailand, Myanmar, and Sri Lanka, as well as in several other regions, there are many such traditional practices. When you experience an extremely strong sense of greed, you should practice the impurity white bones contemplation. Back in 1999, I visited Thailand. The people specifically went into the forest, for example, in much the same way as we now so carefully dissect, examine, and thoroughly analyze animal bodies in great detail. They placed dead human corpses in the forest. And some elders and scholars give special talks to them, explaining how the human body is composed and whether it is really worth being attached to. At first, for those who lack theoretical understanding, they might find it silly. That's a dead and I'm alive. How is there no difference? But when you really contemplate it, even for a moment, you realize, oh, no matter who I'm really especially attached to or obsessed with, in reality, it's this body, a stinking skin bag. If you open up all the flesh, bones, and even the internal organs under the skin and dissect all one by one, you won't find a single thing that's truly worth your delight. For example, a sheet of white paper, at the very least, it won't contaminate my body. But the bodies of the people we're especially fond of, whether they are young or old, our craving for the human body is a kind of deluded obsession. Many people have never thought about this. They just think, I should like this person, I love that person. This is a kind of well-known traditional catchphrase that people usually use. Everyone says that if I say who I love or who I like, everyone feels love is theirs. But in reality, it's simply just our attachment to the external adornment of the human body. You'll find this is the truth when you truly observe. And this truth, I believe, no one can ever truly erase or eliminate. So some intellectuals, at the very beginning, once I had the opportunity to meet an intellectual who was working as a government official in Thailand. During our brief conversation, I was struck by this person's thoughtful approach. Actually, Thailand is quite different from our place in many aspects. Generally, when they reach around 20 years old, they all have to go through a mandatory short period of monastic life. This includes the prime minister. Everyone must experience the life of a monk. From a Buddhist perspective, this plants the virtuous seed of ordination. From a worldly perspective, when this person were to become a monk, their behavior gradually becomes more disciplined, and this is one of the purposes. At that time, there was an intellectual among them who, at first, when he encountered the contemplation of the impurity of the human body, although he learned it, perhaps because his environment was different, at first he had a very dismissive attitude. But later, gradually, the elder also explained truth and teachings to him. After these explanations, he slowly, and after some careful thought, began to finally accept it. After accepting it, in a short period of time, he developed great confidence from the depths of his heart, completely, regarding the elder's teachings. He said, I truly was very ignorant and deluded before. I shouldn't be so attached to this kind of body. Whether it's my body or someone else's, in reality it's just flesh and blood. Why am I so attached to this mass of flesh and blood? Why are humans so perplexed and confused for some reason? Back then, at that particular moment, he was genuinely very surprised. I think of many of us because everyone receives different education from childhood, haven't really had the sufficient opportunity to learn about our own bodies, how they work, how they function, or to truly understand some important truths. If we had the chance, people are inherently good at birth. It should be said that everyone has this kind of virtuous root, which can be restored. Therefore, when we practice the impure contemplation of white bones from the Hinayana tradition, to put it simply, there are still extremely rich and profound principles involved. For example, when anger emerges in the mind, both the Mahayana and the Hinayana traditions say the same thing. A Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life also has a specific chapter on it. When we get very angry or feel intense hatred, perhaps many people have never examined just how heavy their anger really is. But when you actually observe it, you notice the color, shape, and essence of your anger. When you are in the midst of anger, observe what color this mind has, or whether this mind arises from the external enemy, perhaps from outside forces, or space between, or in which particular part of the body, or within yourself. Where exactly is this mind located? Analyzing it this way, in fact, the anger emotion in our hearts is just like clouds and mist in the sky. So generally speaking, for people of higher capacity, one effective and reliable way to counteract afflictions is viewing them as being just like vast empty space. The Buddha's sutra on the obstacles of pure practice. All afflictions are the Dharma. All afflictions are like the nature of emptiness. This means those people with higher realization, when they finally take the time to truly notice, acknowledge, and carefully observe the presence of affliction, when you face an affliction, you'll find it's no different from empty space if you observe its essence. The Platform Sutra states that greed is bodhi, anger is bodhi. The manifestation of greed and anger is not bodhi, while the essence of greed and anger is bodhi. If you recognize their true nature, then they are bodhi. But if you do not recognize them, they are indeed not bodhi. No matter how many afflictions you generate, it does not mean you generate that much bodhi as well. The matter of fact is not the meaning. So as for these issues, regardless of whether we are officials or people from any social class, there are actually some especially profound principles in Buddhism, and we should at least understand them a little. Once we have a bit of understanding, then in this world, no matter who we are, regardless of our background, it is impossible to be without afflictions or suffering. When you encounter suffering, you might try other methods, such as using money to deal with it, for example, by paying for services or resources, or by changing your environment in some way. People think they can't stay here longer, while going to Tibet or to Russia can't actually solve the problem. The fundamental issue, quite simply, can't be resolved that way because the underlying root cause actually lies within your own mind. It is often thoughtfully and reflectively recalled that, as Sun Yat-sen once said, politics can discipline the body while religion disciplines the mind. He also said, Buddhism embodies universal benevolence that saves the world. Buddhist studies are the mother of philosophy. The study of Buddhism can remedy the limitations of science. Citizens must cultivate religious thought. I think this passage about Buddhism is extremely important. It can also be combined with our wisdom and compassion today. Buddhism teaches wisdom and compassion. This is the quite characteristic of Buddhism. When people do anything, having only wisdom without compassion is simply still not enough. Look at some of the top talent students and intellectuals in our society today. They are very smart, even in stealing money from banks or doing any kind of really bad things, which are very easy for them. Whether it's embezzlement or producing food that harms many ordinary people, or making counterfeit and fake products, they are capable of doing anything. These people have wisdom, perhaps even a certain intelligence, but they lack compassion or understanding. But Buddhism, as Mr. Sun just mentioned, is exactly the opposite. It is a kind of remarkable benevolence that saves the world. It is truly an education of compassion that can save the world. This is something that everyone must indeed understand. Many people now see Buddhism as a kind of superstition, or think that Buddhism is just a few people burning incense and worshipping the Buddha, or going to temples to do some very simple rituals and acts. It is not the case. In fact, the true logic and intricate philosophy of Buddhism are considered to be deeper, complex, and nuanced than what is found in Western philosophy. I have a great and genuine interest in Western philosophy, and for a period of time I fully devoted myself to it. I bought all the books on both modern and ancient Western philosophy in total. Day and night, I would read them over and over again. Later, I developed an even greater and more profound sense of confidence in the teachings and timeless wisdom of Shakyamuni Buddha, as I realized that, in fact, all these principles can be found within Buddhism. So first of all, Buddhism essentially requires wisdom in order to achieve enlightenment. Buddhism, actually, is also the mother of philosophy and possesses wisdom. Buddhism speaks of compassion that saves the world, referring specifically to the concept of compassion. If we only have compassion, but lack wisdom, it still won't work as intended, not at all. Many of us are compassionate. Some people, no matter what good deeds or acts of charity they do in their daily lives, are always consistently very diligent, but they lack wisdom. Without wisdom, even handling ordinary worldly matters, just dealing with daily affairs, is simply not possible. Transcending mundane in emptiness, the existence of past and future lives and the law of cause and effect, and how rare it is to have a human body. If we don't understand any of these principles, then the things people do, at times, would be extremely and remarkably blind. There is no direction, no sense of values. Acting in this way is indeed quite unreasonable. So sometimes I really feel that people genuinely need to have wisdom in their lives. This wisdom is best if it encompasses all the principles of both the worldly and the transcendent. If you don't understand Buddhist teachings, worldly wisdom, I think many of the intellectuals from Sun Yat-sen University present here today should possess this kind of wisdom. This wisdom ought to be present. While as for compassion, the compassion in Buddhism is completely different from the compassion found in certain other religions today. The compassion and kindness in Buddhism is extended towards all living beings, without exception. It encompasses every form of life and the value of every living being. Generally speaking, this is actually something that most people simply cannot imagine. I've heard that here in Guangdong, a Life Release Association has been established to promote the three lives concept that consists of three core values: the ecological protection, the value of life, and a happy life, which I think are all excellent initiatives. However, in these efforts, if we want to achieve true ecological balance in a fundamental way, I believe that Buddhist principles are indispensable. The value of life, while we thoughtfully compare the value of human life to that of animals, considering all relevant factors and perspectives, many people feel that in our society, human life is truly precious. This is universally acknowledged. No matter the circumstances, just as in certain feudal societies in the past, perhaps at times some people of higher status could trample on the lives of those below them at will. But now, in the 21st century, everyone believes that all people should have equal rights to life. But the lives of other sentient beings are not necessarily considered to have exactly the same value. This is precisely our mistaken view. It truly is a mistaken view. It's just that human thinking has not yet reached the highest level. We have always been in a state of blindness. We still don't realize that the beings we eat and kill now in our daily lives, in fact, when you really think about it, each one of their lives is essentially precisely the same as mine. I want to live in this world, and my life is more precious than anything. In the hospital, if I have even the last chance to stay alive, I would be willing to give up all of my wealth and power if it ever became necessary. If I can stay alive, I'm willing. But in our world, this is true for the lives of all animals, in fact, as well. This is the unique spirit of Buddhism. In the history of Tibet, there was a truly remarkable master named Gendun Khenpo, who once said, "The distinguishing feature of Buddhism is not conquering the world through war, unlike many other historical movements. Nor is it through any other means. Its approach is, without a doubt, unique. There are many monks who would not even harm an ant. Such actions would definitely move the entire world." So why has Buddhism existed for over 2,500 years in the human history? What is the reason for Buddhist universal love so enviable to everyone? It is not through force, nor is it like some other religions that ultimately seek to conquer the world through violent means, and then display their own prestige and power, making sure that everyone around them can clearly recognize it. That's not the case. It is entirely based on deep, genuine compassion and wisdom that comes from the heart. These two essence, wisdom and compassion, Buddhism plays such an important and significant role in the world today. It was around 2009 when, during the process of awarding among all religions worldwide, Buddhism received the first prize. You can look this up in history. It's all available online. I've introduced this in other contexts before. Why are there so many religions today? According to some statistical information, there are more than 2,000 religions and distinct philosophies all around the world. Of all these philosophies, why did Buddhism get this award? The reason is that Buddhism does not harm any sentient being and is compassionate toward all beings. Moreover, in addition to this compassion, Buddhism also possesses wisdom. This wisdom, now regardless we are talking about values, worldviews, or outlooks on life, in every respect, Shakyamuni Buddha, more than 2,500 years ago, analyzed every side of our lives in a detailed and thorough way and carefully examining each moment and experience. I think that people with wisdom, the reflective ones, will be interested and concerned about what exactly Buddhism truly teaches. Of course, some things are in fact not Buddhist teachings, to be honest. Especially in the Mandarin-speaking areas, some things are not part of Buddhist doctrine. They are merely individual behaviors carried out under the banner of Buddhism. We should not, in any way, consider or regard these as Buddhism. There are many things, such as fortune-telling and divination, as well as all sorts of different phenomena, including those that intentionally mislead the public in various ways. Does Buddhism have these? There are indeed such behaviors, but can these behaviors represent Buddhism? They cannot. The true spirit of Buddhism is preserved in the Chinese Tripitaka, which are still intact and undamaged in various temples and libraries. I hope many of our intellectuals don't only read Diamond Sutra, Shurangama Sutra, and think reading 2 or 3 scriptures is enough. That's not true. You should look at all of them. Teachings from Shakyamuni Buddha's first, second, and third Dharma wheel turnings, including the tantric scriptures and these classics, browse through them and see how you feel. Later, there were many eminent monks and great masters from India and from Tibet and Mandarin-speaking areas. I previously read works from Han Buddhism, eminent monks' bios, Tang, Song, and continued. The new continued biographies of eminent monks is a supplement to the biographies of eminent monks of the Song dynasty. After reading them, I realized that so many people were able to overcome afflictions and attain states of happiness through spiritual practice beyond words to describe. It's not in ancient times, it happens today. Indeed, after studying the Dharma, no matter in what aspect, one can find happiness. Even when facing suffering from birth, aging, sickness, and death, one will gain the courage to face life. Yesterday, when I was in Wuhan, I met an intellectual, and this intellectual seems genuinely quite pitiful. He only has 2 months left to live. He is in the late stage of liver cancer, and the cancer in his liver has already spread to his lungs. The doctor told him he only has 2 months to live. Yesterday, he came to visit me at the airport together with his wife and the young daughter. While their family didn't seem like they were facing late-stage cancer, I've met many people like this before and found that the whole family usually is in a state of suffering. While for them, including the patient and his family, it wasn't like that. Later, I learned about that they had practiced Buddhism for years. After studying Buddhism, though the karma they created in past lives has made their current life so short, he feels that birth, aging, sickness, and death are just part of a process for people. No matter what, in the long river of life, there will be countless births and deaths. There were before, and there will be more ahead. So for him, it didn't really matter. His wife as well shared the same perspective on this particular issue. We have a good relationship. Financial situation has improved. And from a worldly point of view, we are very successful. But if, unfortunately, he passes away, we don't have anything to be excessively sad about. Buddhism has truly given us strength, as well as a kind of inner comfort. If we hadn't studied Buddhism, our family might have already fallen apart with no escape. His daughter has also studied Madhyamaka very thoroughly and very deeply. During our conversation, on the contrary, my own heart, sometimes when they laughed, I still felt grieved inside. This person only had 2 months left to live. It's really too pitiful. He's also very young, and my heart felt especially soft. But they were still very strong, truly, really very strong indeed. I'm not intended to say this here just to brush you off or to make everyone curious. It's honestly not like that at all. It is just as I said, maybe some of you have already read Sogyal Rinpoche's The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying before. There's a story about His Holiness Dujung Rinpoche in New York around 1976. Someone with a terminal illness went to see him and began to cry once she met the great master. I only have a few months left to live. I'm going to die. What should I do? She said. At that time, Dujung Rinpoche remained calm and composed and said to her very serenely, "It's not just you who will die, we all will die. It's only a matter of sooner or later. You have nothing to be so distressed about." After hearing these words, the patient completely let go of all her worry. Because of the adjustment of her mindset, then she gradually recovered from her illness. She even became one of Dujung Rinpoche's most truly devoted disciples. Sometimes, with the blessings of the three jewels and good conditions, it's possible for the body to recover. Sometimes it just takes time. For some, even if they may eventually pass away, Buddhism truly gives them something profound. Humanity's greatest challenges are birth, aging, sickness, and death, things everyone fears. Many of us don't want to face these things, but we must. Some people are too scared to talk about them. They say, "Oh, well, let's just not talk about it. We'll deal with it when it happens." In fact, by studying Buddhism, each of us gains an understanding of samsara in life, and we all become well prepared and ready. In this process, some people can transform courage into strength, and this kind of inner strength truly makes you completely unbreakable, even in the face of illness. Last year at Larong Five Science Buddhism Academy, there was a student from Qinghai University Medical School who was diagnosed with a terminal illness at the time. Her deepest heartfelt wish before finally departing from this world was to become a devoted monastic. No matter what happened afterward, her life was expected to be short. Her doctors had given her a very limited prognosis. Finally, she became a monastic, fulfilling her dream. After ordaining, her illness miraculously disappeared. Some people practice Buddhism and adjust the mindset. We're not telling mythical stories here, while in the real life, many very rare and miraculous things also happen. I think it's really a pity that so many people nowadays are unaware that Buddhism possesses an infinite wealth of wisdom and power beyond our imagination. If we have faith, the real and unwavering faith, then many people will truly access this incredible power. However, for various reasons, people often fail to actually make use of it in practice. Many times when we want to overcome our afflictions, no matter what kinds of afflictions there are, the methods for dealing with afflictions and suffering in the secular world, and those taught in Buddhism are different. People in the secular world worry about getting sick. They avoid to get sick, praying for protection. Most people have the mindset of not wanting any obstacles or misfortunes. They wish peace, happiness, and success forever. Even when visiting temples to pay respect, whenever people burn incense and pray to the Buddha, they are always asking for blessings, happiness, and good fortune. They wish to avoid suffering themselves, but in fact this is a narrow-minded kind of aspiration. Why narrow-minded aspiration? Why shouldn't we wish for peace in our families and for ourselves? Of course, it's fine to wish for these things. But while making such aspirations? Have you thought about people around you? Have you considered sentient beings? Mahayana Buddhism emphasizes benefiting all sentient beings. It never encourages how to obtain happiness just for oneself, or about how glorious that would be. There is no such teaching. So, in fact, the greatest and the most elevated form of spirit in this world should be helping others. This is what Buddhism calls bodhicitta. Many people might think that Buddhism is either about going to the remote mountains to become a monk and engage in spiritual practice, or about reciting Namo Amitabha every day, and they understand it as a particularly simple teaching. We haven't understood this. If you really take the time to learn and understand it in a systematic way, then you will fully realize that Buddhism has abundant methods for transforming afflictions into the path. How to understand the transformation? For example, getting sick is usually a painful experience. But in Buddhism, illness is not generally regarded as something that is truly painful. Some people might think, how is that so? After all, being sick is painful for everyone, so how can it be transformed? Because when a person gets badly sick, if you once were an arrogant person, after you fall ill as a result, from then on, you won't be arrogant anymore. Previously, you might have thought that as long as you had good health, nothing else really mattered. But from then on, you realize, oh, this body experienced illness, death, and aging, and it's not as perfect as I imagined. At this moment, this illness has already taken on a different kind of value. Moreover, when we engage in the practice, this particular illness actually brings with it many favorable conditions, opportunities, and merits. Take Milarepa, for example. He encountered that his uncle and aunt forcefully took away all his possessions. As the adversity that he faced, he had to go elsewhere and compelled to pursue wrathful rituals. After committing the sin, he felt a strong sense of remorse from the bottom of his heart. Oh, I am the greatest sinner in the world. And from now, I will definitely start over and diligently practice confession and repentance. He became one of the greatest Buddhism figures in the history and got enlightened through this process. Therefore, in our daily lives, I think we shouldn't always be asking for peace and happiness every day, not to just focus on that. Whenever you encounter any suffering, any setbacks, or any adversity, immediately transform them into practice. If you can turn it into spiritual practice, the so-called success in both worldly and spiritual matters will begin to appear. I remember Madame Curie, the famous scientist. I once learned in detail about her life story. At that time, I felt that though it wasn't a Buddhist realization, but from a worldly perspective, people throughout the world also need this kind of strong conviction. When she was 19 years old, her love affairs nearly drove her to commit suicide. She was devastated. So she left Poland and then went to the city of Paris in France. At the University of Paris, she devoted herself fully to research work. She was quite hardworking. When she was particularly cold at night and there was no heating devices to warm her, she forced the chairs and other things on top of herself for warmth in order to fall asleep. It was in such a difficult life that she developed her profound wisdom. Later, in 1903, she was finally awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. In 1911, she received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Having won the Nobel Prize twice as a woman is something that is considered to be extremely rare in all of recorded history. Many historians have wondered what led to her success at that time. They believe adversity in her life forced her to develop her wisdom. It can be said she has the resilient wisdom which began to gradually emerge in her field of groundbreaking scientific research. Today, many people in society, including college students and intellectuals, have been raised under the loving care of their parents since childhood. When they go to school, They are gently nurtured under the attentive care and thoughtful protection of their teachers. But when they enter society, they are fragile. It's like a greenhouse flower suddenly placed under the sun outside. It withers away almost immediately. Why do so many college students commit suicide nowadays? The main reason is the lack of spiritual education. If we, whether teachers or students, especially teachers in schools, should talk about how to face life and what to do when you encounter suffering or when you face hardship. In Buddhism, we talk about transforming suffering into the path. Originally, people think that suffering is something painful, but honestly, I don't see it that way. If you treat it as a true form of spiritual practice or as tempering in life, then I think any difficulties people have will not really be, in any significant way, truly lead them to lose their precious lives. Such things wouldn't happen. So in the Tibetan region, among those individuals who are fortunate enough to receive a Buddhist education, it is almost always extremely rare for anyone to choose suicide. But now in the Tibetan region, I said in a school, people usually commit suicide due to emotional reasons. It's almost never the case among the Tibetans. But later, in some schools, among the teenagers, this phenomenon is also occurring now. Because this generation of young people sometimes lacks religious education, including those young people in the schools. They also felt this stemmed from a lack of faith. Consequently, there have also been some activities held in schools to address it. So we need philosophical studies in every school, and we need the studies of religious and of the traditional culture as well. These should be regarded as the national treasures from their respective ethnicities, countries, and regions, and the equivalent national treasures of one's own country. If you don't have an inner spiritual refuge, such as a place of peace and comfort, and only seek happiness from the outside, human desires are endless. I think you will never truly reach a place of complete satisfaction. You can see that if someone already has $1 million, they might still want 10 million just to have even more. If you have 10 million, you'll want 100 million. With 100 million, you'll want 1 billion, then 10 billion. In this way, our human greed is ultimately truly limitless. It is not possible to fill the emptiness in our hearts with external things. That's why people should learn to be content and desire less. If I have something, I can accept it. If not, I just go with the flow of circumstance. It applies widely, including myself, regarding the attitude toward any aspects of life. Just go with the flow, don't force things or insist on them too much. Whatever I do, if the conditions are right, I do it happily. If the right conditions simply aren't present, there's no need to force anything. Many people in today's society, particularly those we interact with, when talking, for example, about relationship issues, many people are possessive. He treats me this way and that. But when the right conditions aren't present between people, no matter how attached you are, how hard you try, things may not work out. Without money, even the hardest efforts ended poorly, and how painful the process was. The result won't change. So I think that to eliminate our afflictions, we need to let go of self-centeredness. The Buddhist view of dependent origination is the best approach. In Buddhist teachings on dependent origination, there are many methods of observation. Through analytical observation, one sees everything is emptiness. Avatamsaka Sutra states, if we observe things properly and realistically, all phenomena are empty of inherent existence. Just as Nagarjuna Bodhisattva said, in the treatise on the great perfection of wisdom, a small child, when seeing the moon reflected in water, believes it truly exists there and tries to scoop it out. But some elderly people who may have more life experience find the child's actions to be quite amusing, even entertaining. Moon reflection isn't real. So in this world, those with some spiritual attainment or life experience, youth persistence and youth life may find them laughable, feeling there's nothing truly substantial or meaningful about them. This is also spiritual practice. Therefore, in any situation, we should both genuinely concern ourselves with all our social issues as responsible members of society. In today's world, some people often only think about their own lives and don't consider the concerns of humanity as a whole. For example, matters regarding the environmental protection and the need for conservation, and critical concepts such as human charity and animal protection. These are all matters that are very worthy of attention, especially in many places. Waste is a serious problem. Although generally speaking, this may seem like a small issue, it's a matter of blessings and fortune we need to take seriously. If many of all us severely lose our blessings and good fortune, we may become beggars next life. And even we might never attain real wealth in our lifetimes. The little wealth that we own in this lifetime, if we always waste it, it is truly an absolutely frightening thing. Therefore, there are actually many different issues that we really need to care about. People should try to take a broader perspective and look further ahead. Don't focus what's just in front. Thinking, I make money, I'm happy, my family is fine, that's enough. Besides, for those around us, the afterlife and the whole society, if you are indifferent, that's not Mahayana. And it is even less in line with the concept of bodhicitta, according to Buddhist teachings, which refers to achieving enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, as the principle is traditionally understood and emphasized in Buddhism. So among us here, many are intellectuals. Some of you understand Buddhism, or others may not understand it. While, at the very least, as I often encourage, I ask everyone to study texts like the Way of Bodhisattva together. If you thoroughly study such treatises, I believe they will bring tremendous benefits to your life, work, and all other aspects. In the past, Buddhists faced suffering and difficulties in life, but after studying the Dharma, our lives underwent a complete transformation. This is inseparable from our study of these teachings. Therefore, as I mentioned earlier, starting from extensive learning and ultimately reaching earnest practice, we should study and practice. That is to say, combining listen, contemplate, and meditate. Only then can we eliminate our various afflictions and sufferings, and will allow us to live a truly fulfilling, joyful, and genuinely happy life in this and future lives. I think that is all for today.